Well, hello, everybody. This is Hamilton Morales, National Social Security Advisor, and I'm the one who was supposed to speak at your seminar several weeks ago for Trent Bradshaw, and unfortunately we had to cancel that. And so they asked me if I'd be willing to record a seminar so they could send it out to you folks. And so I was trying to get that done via video, and all of a sudden 95% of our office ended up working from home. Wasn't able to do that, and they have been graciously on me to get something recorded, and so you're going to get the recording with the PowerPoint and the audio, but not with me on there. So hopefully this will be informative for you. It's a little strange doing it via the phone and the PowerPoint, not being in front of people, asking questions and things of that nature. So with that being said, if you do have any questions that are prompted in this, what you can do is you can email the team at Trent's office, and they'll be more than happy to shoot that over to me, and I'll answer those questions as they come in, and then they will forward those back over to you. So let's get started. I guess first things first, right? We have to do some disclosures. So I am insurance licensed in the state of North Carolina, which doesn't mean a whole lot. But the thing that does mean a lot, and that you do need to understand, is I am not associated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or really any other government agency. This is something I do on my own. I've been doing this for about 5-6 years now. I actually speak at Social Security seminars across the country for different financial advisors that are out there. I also used to teach classes on Social Security. It was an 8-hour course that I would teach to financial advisors and people who did tax preparing out there. So it was a lot of fun. I don't do that part of it anymore, but I do continue to do Social Security seminars because it is such an important piece that's out there that's really missing when we're dealing with financial advisors, especially those that are working on your retirement, not saving for retirement, but what am I going to do now that I'm getting ready to go into retirement, or I'm planning for retirement here pretty soon. And so this is a pretty big piece that we have to deal with, and we want to make sure that at least you have some information that is goes along with Social Security, that hopefully really what the goal is for this seminar is not to make you experts in Social Security, but really give you some information that hopefully will start the wheels turning in your head about, I wonder if I can do that. I wonder if that's a good idea for my situation. So you can start asking these questions to see how this is going to work for you versus not knowing what to ask and you just go and turn on your benefits not knowing how that's going to affect you long term. So things that we're going to cover during this presentation, we are going to understand the basics of Social Security. I do think that's important, that you need to understand how they come up with these different things. We are going to talk about some claiming strategies that could help potentially increase your monthly benefit. And again, just like I said, we want to leave you better prepared to make informed decisions. And truth be told, I really don't care when you decide to turn on your benefits. That's your money. You get to decide on when you want to do that. What my concern is, or what I really want to make sure, is that you have all the information necessary to make a good, solid decision. And whatever that decision is, that's your decision. It's up to you. But I just want to make sure you have the information, because these decisions can impact your monthly benefits for years to come. So in talking about Social Security, we have to talk about really all aspects of retirement planning. And really when we talk about retirement planning, what we're really talking about is distribution planning. See, while you're working and you're in your younger years and you're saving for retirement, you're in the accumulation phase of your life. And so you're saving money, you're putting it in your 401k or other types of plans that maybe your employer has, and you're putting that money aside and you're asking for advice as it relates to how do I invest this money so I have the best opportunity for growth during these years. Once you start getting to the retirement age, that actually comes down to being the distribution phase. Distribution phase means, okay, I've accumulated all this during my accumulation phase. Now, how am I going to distribute this during my retirement years, the distribution phase? And so all these things that we're looking at right here on the screen, we have to take into consideration. One, inflation risk. Yes, inflation is fairly low. I know, if you listen to the news long enough, they talk about inflation. They talk about deflation. We don't know what that's going to look like in the years to come, so we do have to consider that. Here's the big one, stock market risk. Boy, do we know about this one, and that's just happened over the last 3 weeks. I believe the markets were down somewhere right around 37% in a 3-week period of time. Insane. In fact, we've seen records broken multiple times, both on the positive side and the negative side, several times just in the past 3 weeks. In fact, I was telling my children the other day that some of these things that we've seen in the last 3 weeks, we might have seen once in a 10-year period of time, and we've seen multiples of these in a 3-week period of time. So we're definitely living in a crazy time. And the stock market, obviously, as we know, is a risk. And so when you're dealing with that, that will have an effect on when am I going to turn on my Social Security benefits. When can I or when should I? Tax risk. We're actually in the lowest tax environment we've been in 30-plus years. I would dare to say that everybody that's listening to this would agree that the taxes will probably only go up, especially with this $2.2 trillion stimulus that they just passed. Where do we all think this money's coming from? Eventually, it's got to be paid back, and I dare to say it's probably going to be in the form of taxes in some way, shape, or form. And so we do have tax risk, and we'll actually talk about taxes on your Social Security benefits in a little bit. Long-term care, personal event circumstances risk, all those things, as we know, are risk. But the biggest one is longevity risk. And I bring this one up because, A, people are living longer. And in living longer, obviously your money has to last longer. That's actually in the next slide. But it does have to last longer. So one of the things that I always ask the group when I'm standing in front of them is, what are the two things we love most about Social Security benefits? Well, one of those things is that I get that monthly payment in my checking account every month. That's comforting. I know it's going to be there every month. The second thing that I love about it is, well, I get it until I pass away. That monthly payment gets put into my account every month until I pass away. So longevity risk really has nothing to do with Social Security benefits. In fact, if you have a pension, it doesn't have anything to do with your pension as well. However, with our retirement accounts, longevity can have a major impact on those accounts. And so there are ways that you can take some of those funds and turn it into an income stream just like Social Security or pension, where you're going to get that check every single month until you pass away. In fact, you can set those up if you're married to where you'll get those payments every month until you pass away, and then your spouse will get those payments until they pass away. So if you got questions about that, feel free to talk with Trent. But it takes longevity off the table, and that's the biggest key there. And so when we look at why that's important, well, like I said before, people are living longer today. In fact, if you're married and you're 65, the chances of one of you hitting 90 is quite large, almost 50%. So it's important to have a good, solid income plan in place. In fact, if you don't have a written income plan, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, you need to have one. Plans are meant to be adjusted, but plans are things that you can follow. You know what's going to happen. You can adjust as you need to, but you have something that you can, that's a guide for you through retirement. So living longer, like we said, your money's got to last longer. It's important to have a solid income strategy, what I just said. And then the timing of the election of your Social Security benefits can be a huge factor in all this. You know, people say, when should I turn on my benefits? And there's multiple answers to that. A, do you want me to tell you how to maximize the benefit? Or B, do you want me to tell you what is the optimal time for you in your situation to turn on the benefit? Those could be two completely different things. And so I would say that it should be B, when is the best time for you to turn on your benefits based off of your situation? And the only way you're going to be able to answer that question is through an income plan to see how it's going to affect you long term. So let's understand some basics. What is Social Security? History of Social Security, qualifying for Social Security, when can you collect, and then, of course, taxes on your Social Security benefits. So what is Social Security? It is a federal program of old age unemployment. I think they could have used better terminology than that, but that is Social Security benefits. So you are older age and you are unemployed. And so not that you wish to be unemployed. You chose, in most cases, to be unemployed. And so now you are 62 or older, and so you can take Social Security benefits if you so choose. It also has the health, which is Medicare, disability, which is Social Security disability, and survivor's insurance, which is if you are the higher of the two wage earners, you're married, you pass away, your spouse can now step into the higher of the two benefits. It is overseen by the federal government, and it's funded through payments by specific employers and employees. So if you're working or when you were working, you paid into Social Security via the FICA tax off of your checks, and your employer also paid the same amount or the same percentage in as well on your behalf. If you were self-employed, you got to do both. So a little bit of the history, most of you know this. President Roosevelt signed it into law in 1935. It was designed to pay retired workers continuing income after retirement. It was not designed to be your retirement. It was designed to supplement the retirement. However, during this period of time, we were going through the Great Depression, and so it was the retirement for these people. They did need to have some kind of income coming in because back then, they didn't have 401ks and things of that nature that allowed them to have money pulled from their check automatically to save. And so it was a very different time back then. First Social Security taxes were collected in 1937. 1983, an amendment included a provision to increase FRA. FRA stands for Full Retirement Age. For those born in 1938 or later, we're actually going to show you a chart about full retirement age here in a couple of screens. So one of the biggest questions I get is, well, is Social Security going to be around? So I can give you my 2 cents worth. This is my opinion and my opinion only. I have nothing to back it up with, but I do firmly believe Social Security will be around. Now, will it look the same? Probably not. So based off of this report that comes out usually every June, says that, so this one would be June of last year, said if nothing changes, we don't make any changes in Social Security, there's enough money to pay for Social Security benefits through 2035. Once we hit 2035, those monies are gone, and the only thing that's paying benefits would be the tax revenues coming in, FICA taxes, that the workers are paying into the system, and that would be enough to pay roughly 75 cents on the dollar. Now, I firmly believe that something is going to change before then. However, nothing has up to this point, and quite honestly, folks, this has been an issue since the 80s. This is not something that's new. every administration keeps kicking it down the road. Now, unfortunately, as you know, a president does not make law. He can sign things into law, but he does not make law. That falls on Congress. And since Congress does not have term limits, to bring up Social Security benefits could be political suicide, and these people love to stay in Congress, and so they are very careful in how they're dealing with Social Security, but sooner or later, it's going to have to be dealt with. So here are some possible solutions that have been talked about in the recent past. One, they can reduce benefits, which is not popular, obviously. Increase payroll taxes, not very popular as well. This one I do like, which is increase or eliminate the earnings cutoff for Social Security payroll taxes. So, if you are working and paying into Social Security and you earn under $137,700, all the money that you earned is susceptible to the FICA tax, which is paying into Social Security. However, any funds that you make over $137,700, for those that do make more than that, the funds or the wages that you make over and above that are not subject to the FICA Social Security tax. So to increase that or to eliminate that altogether, so in other words, hey, if you're working, you're paying into it no matter how much you make. That makes a lot of sense. So every year they do increase that number. Last year it was $132,900, and they've increased it to $137,700 this year. So they are at least increasing the ceiling, but I think they need to do away with it altogether. There's also means testing and increase in full retirement age. And I do believe the last one will happen. Probably my generation, 1960 and above, I believe firmly that they'll increase our full retirement age to age 70. It's currently 67. And so we'll see how that works out. But I do believe that that's a piece that we're going to have to deal with sooner rather than later. So here's the full retirement age eligibility chart. And as you can see right there in the middle is the biggest clump of people. If you were born 1943 to 1954, your full retirement age is 66. For every year after that, so if you were born in 55, it goes up 2 months, 66 and 2 months, 56, 66 and 4 months, so on and so forth, until you get to those born 1960 and later. That full retirement age is 67. Now, this has an impact on if you take your benefits early, what the reduction factor is going to be, or if you take your benefits later, let's say up to age 70, how much of the delayed retirement credits you get. So let's talk about how to qualify for Social Security benefits. First and foremost, you need to work. That's one way to qualify. Now, there are spousal benefits that's off of somebody else's work record, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about your own Social Security benefits. So you have to work, A, and B, you have to pay into the system. There are federal and state workers in certain states that do not pay into Social Security. Therefore, they do not qualify for Social Security unless they had another job somewhere else where they paid into it. So in order to qualify, you have to earn credits. You get 1 credit per quarter that you pay into the system, $1,410. Not difficult. So a total of 4 credits per year can be earned if you pay into the system $5,640 total. So you have to have 40 credits to qualify for Social Security benefits. So all my math majors on the phone, how many years do you have to work if you're earning 4 credits per year and you need 40 total? That's right, 10 years if you're going to do it consecutively. So you don't have to do it consecutively, but if you did, you'd have to work 10 years, 4 credits per year to get 40 credits. Now that's just to qualify. That has nothing to do with how they actually calculate your benefits. So the way they calculate your benefits, I'll give it to you kind of high level. They're going to take your highest 35 years of earnings, and they're going to adjust those for inflation through your age 59. Now, that does not mean if you're working at age 60 and 61 and beyond that they're not going to use those earnings. They will use those earnings if they're part of the highest 35 years. They just will not adjust those for inflation. So, highest 35 years adjusted for inflation, they're going to add those all together, and they're going to divide by 420. 420 is the amount of months in 35 years. Once they divide it by 420, it's going to give you your AMI, your Adjusted Indexed Monthly Earnings. AMI. Your Adjusted Indexed Monthly Earnings. And then what they're going to do is they're going to take that number, that dollar amount, and they're going to run it through what's called Bend Point, B-E-N-D, points. There's 3 of them that it runs through. I'm not going to bore you with that, but once they run it through that, it's going to give them your full retirement age benefit amount, otherwise known as your PIA, Primary Insurance Amount. It is the most important number for you because everything is calculated off of that number. The spousal benefits are calculated off that number, your age 62, your age 70 benefit, everything is calculated off of that PIA, which is your full retirement age benefit amount. Okay, so what happens if you take it early? What happens if you take it later? We're going to assume your full retirement age is 66. So if you decide to take it at 62, it will be reduced, and it will be reduced by 25%. So you get to keep 75% of your PIA, your full retirement age benefit amount. Now, they look at this by month. So every month you wait, it goes up a little bit higher every single month until you get to your full retirement age, which is now 100%. But what happens if I delay it? Well, if you delay it, you get delayed retirement credits, 8% simple interest until age 70. At age 70, you can then file for your benefit at a much higher amount. So if your full retirement age is 66 and you delay it till age 70, your income will increase by 32%. Now, for me, my full retirement age is 67. I don't get 32% increase. I only get 24%, 8% for 3 years. So you can see kind of how that works. And for those of you that are listening to this where your full retirement age is maybe 66 in 2 months or 66 in 4 months, so on and so forth, you're going to get a partial piece of that 8% delayed retirement credit for that first year, just so you know how that works. If you take your Social Security early, prior to your full retirement age, and you're going to continue to work, you will be subject to the earnings test. Now, this is for your own Social Security benefits, this is for spousal benefits, and it's for widow's benefits. So any of those 3, if you take it prior to your full retirement age, it will be reduced, A, and B, if you're working, it will be subject to the earnings test. The earnings test allows you to earn in wages. It's only wages, not distributions from IRAs or pensions or rental income. Only earned wages. If you earn over $18,240, for every $2 you make above that, they will withhold $1 of those benefits. Now, it doesn't go away. Once you retire or you reach full retirement age, whichever happens first, they will take the money that they withheld and they'll recalculate it back into your benefits, so you'll see a little bit of a bump in your benefit amount. So you need to make sure that if you're going to turn your benefits on, that you're either going to make lower than $18,240 or you're not going to work at all. One of those two. Now, once you hit full retirement age, you can earn as much money as you want. There is no earnings test. All right, let's talk about taxes on Social Security benefits, everybody's favorite subject. So in the early 80s, during the Reagan administration, they decided to put this tax in place for Social Security benefits. And they said if you were single below 25, not even earning, having income of 25,000 or less, then your benefits would not be taxed. However, if you had, it's actually based off of your modified adjusted gross income of 25,000 to 34,000, then 50% of your Social Security benefits would be taxable at whatever tax rate you were at for that year. And if you were married and you were making under 32,000, no benefits taxed. However, if you were between 32,000 and 44,000 of income, then 50% of your benefits would be taxable. Not to be outdone, during the Clinton administration, they took it up another notch and said if you were single and your modified adjusted gross income was over $34,000, then 85% of your benefits would be taxable based off of whatever tax rate you were at for that year. And if you were married filing jointly and you made over $44,000, same thing would happen. So what goes into that total to get to those numbers? Well, basically any income you have coming in, whether it's work, pensions, distributions off of retirement accounts, interest off of interest-bearing accounts, interest off of municipal bonds are included, rental income, just pretty much every form of income except two, and I'll get to those in just a second. They also include 50% of your Social Security benefits into that total. So once they add all those up, if you hit those thresholds, then a portion of your benefits will be taxed at whatever tax rate you're at for that year. So what are the two forms of income you can generate for yourself that will not count towards those totals? Well, the first one is cash value life insurance. Cash value life insurance, if taken out properly of the cash value, there's a right way and a wrong way to do it, take it out properly, then that amount you do not get a 1099 on, therefore it is not taxable and does not go into the pot. The other one is a Roth IRA. Roth IRA is funded with after-tax dollars that grows tax-free. That's the key. So when you pull the money out in income, there is no taxes due on the money. And so you want to get with Trent on that and see if either one of those would work for you in your situation. I know most of you probably don't have Roth IRAs, but you can convert your 401ks and IRAs over to a Roth. You can do it over a period of time so you lower the tax burden because you do have to pay taxes on that as you convert. And so those are things that Trent can talk with you about if it's something that you have interest in. So let's kind of tighten this up and talk about some claiming strategies. And some of these are going to be very beneficial. Some are not going to be beneficial for you at all because you can't do them. So it is important, though, to evaluate these strategies and to see if they fit your particular situation. So the first one we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about what I call the spousal addition or the spousal bump. And so anytime you're dealing with Social Security benefits, there's always rules and regulations that accompany these. So rule number one on what I call the spousal bump or the spousal addition, and by the way, if you go into Social Security and you say, hey, tell me about this spousal addition or spousal bump, they're going to look at you like you got four eyes. That's my term to try to keep the two different spousal benefits separate. And so it's when you go in, just say spousal benefits. So the spousal addition, how does it work? Well, first and foremost, your spouse must turn on their benefits and be receiving those benefits. Okay, so that's rule number one. If you are divorced and you were married for at least 10 years, consecutive years, before getting a divorce, and you've been divorced for at least 2 years, then your ex-spouse only has to hit age 62. They do not have to turn their benefit on for rule number one. So if you're married, spouse has to turn on the benefit and be receiving it. If you're divorced and you meet the criteria, your ex-spouse only has to be 62. They do not have to turn it on. Rule number 2, you have to turn on your benefits. And of course, the earliest you can turn on your benefits is age 62. So, number 1, spouse has to turn on their benefits. Ex-spouse has to hit 62. Number 2, you have to turn on your benefits. When this happens, Social Security is going to look at your full PIA, that's your full retirement age benefit amount, and they're going to compare it to half of your spouse or ex-spouse's PIA. Now, the calculation remains the same regardless of when any of you turns on your benefits, whether you turn on 62, 70, it doesn't make any difference. The calculation remains the same. Your full PIA compared to half of your spouse or ex-spouse's PIA. If your full is less than their half, they're going to subtract those two numbers, and the difference is the spousal addition. Don't fret, I have an example. So we're going to look at John and Jane. We're going to say John's PIA is $2,400. John turns on his benefits so Jane can be eligible or potentially eligible for the spousal bump. Jane's PIA is $1,000. She turns on her benefits, which means she's getting $1,000. Now what Social Security is going to do is they're going to look at her $1,000, which is her PIA, and they're going to compare it to half of John's PIA, which is $1,200. Well, Jane's full PIA is less than half of John's. So they're going to subtract those two numbers, and the difference is $200. That's the spousal bump or spousal addition. That will now get added on to her $1,000, so her total benefit is going to be $1,200. Well, you're thinking to yourself, well, Hamilton, that's 50% of his benefit. That's correct. So you can receive, or should I say, you could be qualified for up to 50% of your spouse's PIA. That's very important verbiage I just said. You are not eligible for 50% of your spouse's benefits. That's typically what people say. That is incorrect. You could be qualified for up to 50% of your spouse's or ex-spouse's PIA. Let me give you my example. Let's say Jane is 62 and she decides to turn on her benefit. Well, if she turns on her benefit, assuming her full retirement age is 66, her benefit is going to be reduced by 25%. So instead of $1,000, she's going to get $750. Now, again, it doesn't make any difference when John turns on his benefit or even when Jane turns on his benefit. The calculation remains the same. John turns his benefit on. Social Security is going to look at Jane's PIA, 1,000, not her 750. They're going to look at the 1,000. And they're going to compare it to half of John's PIA, again, regardless of when he turns it on. That's going to be $1,200. We know the math. Subtract the 2, it's $200. That's the spousal bump. However, Jane is under full retirement age, so that $200 has to be reduced. Because she is 62 in this particular case, and it's a spousal benefit, not her own benefit, instead of a 25% reduction, it's going to be a 30% reduction. So now it goes from 200 to 140. So now we take the 750, we add it to the 140. That is going to be $890 is her complete benefit now. So is that half of his PIA? No, it's not. And that's because she took her benefits early. That's why I said up to 50%. I also said in that phrase, you could qualify. Well, not everybody's going to qualify for this benefit. What if John's PIA was $2,000 instead of $2,400? Would Jane qualify at that point? Let's do the math. Her full PIA minus half of his PIA. His full was $2,000. Half of it would be $1,000. $1,000 minus $1,000 is 0. She would not qualify. So all she would get would be her benefit. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about that. You may not qualify because your PIA might be the same or larger than half of your spouse or half of your ex-spouse's PIA. The next strategy that you could use, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because fewer and fewer people are eligible to do this. Back in 2015, there was a law that was passed called the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2015. And part of that bill, there were two pieces that were being eliminated. One was the file and suspend or claim and suspend. It's the same thing. That pretty much ended April of 2016, at least for the purposes that we wanted to use it for. The second piece of that was eliminated was the restricted application. What is a restricted application? It's an application a person can file against their spouse's work record that allows them to receive half of their spouse's or ex-spouse's PIA, and here's the kicker, while their benefit continues to defer and grow at 8% per year till age 70, and then at age 70 they can file for their benefit at a much larger amount. So what they did in this bill is they grandfathered in a group of people. So if you were born prior to 1954, you are eligible. If you were born 1954 and after, you are not eligible. This is only for the person who wants to file the restricted application. This does not apply to their spouse or ex-spouse. Okay, so again, it's different. If your ex-spouse or your spouse is turning on their benefit, but you were born prior to 54, then you can file a restricted application. If you feel like you fall into this category and you want to explore it, and also you have not turned on your benefits, that's key. If you have not turned on your benefits, you were born prior to 1954, and you want to explore that maybe this might work for my situation, make sure you get with Trent and his team, and so we can look at it further and see how it would work for you. This is just an example of how it works. I'm going to go ahead and pass through that. So, a couple of things before we wrap this up. I do want to talk briefly about widow's benefits. That is also another big question mark that I get. Widow's benefits has a lot of variations to it. And so the one thing you do need to understand, the basics of it is, if your spouse passes away, or your ex-spouse, assuming you have not remarried, passes away, you are eligible to step up into the higher benefit, whichever benefit that is. However, there are things we can do for that. If you haven't turned on your benefits yet and you lose a spouse or ex-spouse, you could turn on the spousal benefit first and let your benefits grow till age 70. And assuming your benefits are larger at age 70, then you could file for your benefits to get a higher amount, or vice versa. You can turn your benefits on early and let the spousal benefit grow until you hit your full retirement age, which means you'll get the maximum widow's benefits, and then you could turn the widow's benefits on at that time. There's a lot of different things you can do with that. Also, you can turn on widow's benefits as early as age 60, or if you are disabled, as early as age 50. Another couple things you need to understand is if you lose a spouse early, let's say in your 50s, and you want to get remarried sometime down the line, first of all, you're not eligible for the widow's benefit because you're not age 60 yet. However, if you remarry before your 60th birthday, you will not be eligible for those widow's benefits at all. But if you do get remarried at or after your 60th birthday, you will be eligible still for the widow's benefits off of your deceased spouse's work record. So these are things you just need to know that are out there. The most important thing that you need to know, the absolute most important thing, is that you need to know somebody that you can go to in the event you lose a spouse to help guide and walk you through what are the best options for you and what you can and can't do. If you lose a spouse, it is an unbelievable emotional time, and there's so many things that have to be done and so many things going through your head. The last thing you need to be doing is making financial decisions without understanding all the ramifications around that. And so to have somebody that you can go to walk through that with you and make sure you have all the information is so key. I can't tell you how important that is. So, let's wrap this up. A couple of questions you need to ask yourself. A, should you start collecting your Social Security first and keep your savings growing in retirement, or should you delay your Social Security benefits and temporarily rely on your retirement savings? I can't answer that question for you. Honestly, you can't answer that question for yourself. The only way you're going to know for sure what's going to be best for you in your situation is to have a written income plan and test both scenarios and see how they're going to affect you long term. And that's something that Trent and his team can do for you. They can help you with that if that's something that you desire. I know we're in the virtual age right now with everything going on. I'm sure via telephone or via Zoom or whatever that Trent and his team can have an appointment with you and talk through these things with you. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to set up an appointment and just have that conversation with you. But I think the biggest key that you need to take away from all this is there's many different options depending on the situation, and not every situation is the same, but the answers are going to be different for different people. And the only way you're going to know how these things are going to affect you, your spouse, during retirement is if you put a written income plan together and you test these things out to see how they're going to affect you long term. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening and watching the slides. I certainly hope all of you a great day. Stay safe, stay well, and like I said before, if you have any questions, get with Trent and his team. If they can't answer those questions for you, they have the bat phone, so they can pick up the phone and give me a call. Be more than happy to answer those questions. Even if you need to be on the line, we can certainly do that. I wish you well today, and this will officially end the presentation. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.